This is the Morning Swim Show for Thursday, August 11th, 2011. I'm your host, Peter Bush. In the Finesse Monitor today, we have an exclusive interview with James Magnussen. He just had a breakout meet at the World Championships, winning the 100 freestyle and leading the Australians to gold in the 4x100 freestyle relay. Our Australian correspondent, Ian Hansen, spoke with Magnussen.
Hi swimming fans, Ian Hansen here, down under in Sydney, Australia, and we've just seen the arrival back home of the man of the moment, the world champion in the 100 freestyle, James Magnussen, who joins us here exclusively for swimmingworld.com. Just take us back to the year 2000 and watching the Sydney Olympics. And I know that you've spoken about this before, and sitting in your lounge room watching with your family that night that Australia won the 4x1 freestyle relay. Can you just reflect on that?
Yeah, look, I think that's probably my first memory of swimming at an elite level. The first race I can remember watching anyway, I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I remember when it came down to Thorpe's leg, Dad and I were jumping around the lounge room, you know, screaming, cheering him on, and when they won it, you know, it's one of those goosebumps moments. I've watched it on YouTube quite a few times since, and you still get goosebumps just watching that race. So it was a special race, obviously for Australia as a country, but for me personally, and definitely something, you know, that I've drawn on for inspiration over the years.
I mean, kids dream. I mean, were you dreaming back then of maybe doing a Thorpe?
Yeah, look, I've been telling my friends and family since I was about 5 years old that I was going to be going to the Olympics. But you know, it always seems such a distant thing, and possibly at times an unrealistic goal. But to now be so close and to have it just around the corner, it's a pretty exciting time.
I gather a little birdie time that there was a bit of a tear in the eye of some of those coaches there when you did achieve those amazing performances in Shanghai. It must be nice to, as you said, to have that faith that people have had in you then, to know that, hey, you can make it.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think the two big ones for me were Jim Fowley at the New South Wales Institute of Sport. Identified me from a young age and has helped me right the way through my career. And then obviously it's a special moment for him, having noticed me from such a young age and brought me through. And definitely for Brand as well. I think that's the first big team he's been on, and being able to have a world champion as well is a pretty big notch on the belt.
You became the national age champion at 16.
Yep.
Tell us about that period of your life.
Yeah, look, younger than 16, I hadn't achieved a great deal in swimming. Then a guy by the name of Reece Turner moved to Port Macquarie. He was quite a child prodigy at the time. And he was a really confident guy, possibly where I've drawn a bit of my confidence that I've got today. And through training with him, I was able to see what it took to sort of achieve those results. And so around that age, I started putting in a little bit more work, and just with that little bit of extra work and commitment, I was able to go from you know, 20th, 30th at national age to the next year winning it. And from there, you know, I've built on that slowly over the years to get where I am now.
And then the decision to come to Sydney, but there was a holiday before that, wasn't there? I mean, there was the big discussion. Yeah, you're going to come to Sydney, but
yeah,
there was the
right.
family holiday to Norway.
Yeah. So during the year before that, I took basically the whole year out of the pool. My mother's a teacher and my dad's also quite academic, so they wanted me.
It was the missiles gap year.
Yeah, the missile gap year, something like that. Yeah. So I took the year off and did the HSC and got quite a decent mark in that, which was always something that was very important to my family. And so then after the HSC was over, it was sort of, you know, time to relax. But instead of getting back into swimming, I decided to go on a 6 weeks holiday over to London and Europe, and saw some family that I've got over in Norway. And then I think, you know, getting all that out of my system made it easier to take the plunge and move to Sydney and get my life on track.
And also, I suppose, looking around you and having the support that NSWIS can provide, the coaching as well as everything else that comes with the you know, with NSWIS.
Yeah, look, I've got a great support team at the moment. I definitely couldn't have got where I am without it, in terms of strength and conditioning coaches, dietitians, physios, doctors, and then obviously the coaching staff. It just puts it all on a plate for me and makes it so much easier. And I've got, you know, resources here that people around the world would be jealous of.
There'd been a lot said about the suits.
Yeah.
Something that you've just seemed to have just put into the background and just got on with carving your own times in this sport.
Yeah, I never got a chance to wear the polyurethane suits. I did wear a Speedo laser, but to be honest, the way I race the 100 freestyle, I didn't get that much of an advantage out of it. The way that those suits advantaged people was that they were able to basically sprint the full 100 metres. You know, and I was still going out and sort of nearly negative splitting even at a young age. So getting rid of the suits was one of the better things that could have happened for my career, I think.
And also, you said, James, doing the work. I mean, Peter Van den Hoogenband, in some interviews that he did in Shanghai, said this young man has, obviously looking at him, has done the work. There's no shirking doing the hard yards, is there?
Yeah, that's right. You know, you can't get around doing that hard work if you want to get to the level that I'm at now. And I think also that the sort of work that Brant does is very innovative and very new age compared to some of the old school hardcore stuff that other people are doing. And I think that's starting to show through in my results.
Well, a lot of the opposition countries obviously saw that as well and thought, well, this boy's been sick. There's no way in the world he's going to be able to do what, or back up his performances earlier in the year. But you certainly did.
Yeah, I think going into Worlds after having been sick, I thought maybe just getting back down to that 48.2 mark would have been a fair achievement. And I think possibly a lot of those other lead-off guys in the relay were thinking the same thing. But maybe that gave people a false sense of security and that sort of being able to take that, I guess, a little bit of an underdog status into the relay, I think helps my mind space a lot too.
Just walking around the pool deck in Shanghai, did people know who you were in those early days?
Not before the relay, no. After the relay, yes. Obviously after the 100, definitely. After the relay, we're in the marshalling area for the heats of the 100 freestyle, James Roberts and myself. And I don't think people really knew who I was, so I was sort of geeing him up to go around and tell people he let off the Australian relay and sort of psych him out a bit. But yeah, definitely after the heats and semis of the individual 100, people knew who I were come that final, and after that, you know, there was a few raised eyebrows.
There's been a lot of talk about the fact that, James, that you became the first Australian to win the world title in the 100 freestyle, and hopefully, you know, following in the footsteps of some of the great sprinters of the likes of John Hendricks and John Devitt and Mike Wendon, who have won the Olympic title, and some other great guys like Michael Klim and Thorpe, of course, who was third in Athens, and Eamon Sullivan. To be able to jump in that relay and just blow them out of the water must have been an enormous confidence booster for you.
Yeah, look, I think a lot of those names that you've mentioned there are definitely idols of mine and people I've looked up to in my younger career. So it's a great privilege to be, you know, talked about in those circles. But look, it's something I tried not to think about too much. I mean, it did come out quite a lot in the media before that final that it was going to be a sort of milestone if I could achieve it. But that's something you need to block out a little, I think, because, you know, it is quite a lot of pressure. But it's definitely something that I'm excited about to be talked about in those circles, like I said, and, you know, there's some great names that you've mentioned.
Not only the youngest, but by a fair way, as you said, but also your first World Championship final, and to be able to overcome the hurdles of pneumonia mentally. That mental strength is something that's going to be really, it'll take you, you know, all the way to London, won't it?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important aspects, particularly of swimming, is that mental side of things. I did feel the pinch quite a bit in the semi-final and did get quite nervous before that, which is uncharacteristic for me. But then I sat down and talked to Brant. We talked about the pressure. Like, I was trying to block out the pressures, and we sat down and talked about the pressures. We talked about the fact that they were going to be televising it live in Australia. We talked about the fact that it was, you know, going to be the first person, if I did win it, to have ever won it. And I think when I was able to sit down and accept those pressures and see it as a challenge and be able to embrace the challenge and enjoy it for what it was, when I was able to take that mindset into the race, I was completely relaxed when I went out to race. And when I'm in that mind frame, that's when I'm able to swim fast.
Mate, that is very, very scary. You said you thrive on the big occasions and the big moments, and I know you've been to the Pan Pacs and swum in the relays and the Com Games and into Delhi. That you said, and I quote, "I quite enjoy the pressure and enjoy the moment of a big crowd, and a big event. So I'm looking forward to next year's Olympics. But truly, James, I mean, how many big moments have you had? It's extraordinary for someone who's 20 who can just grasp that and just take it for what it is.
Yeah, look, having watched the sport on TV for quite a number of years, you know, I've always been excited by the big events and the big names racing, and to be able to go out there and do that myself and follow in some big footsteps is something that excites me. And to be able to have a whole crowd of, you know, 14,000 people cheering and watching you, and, you know, you're the centre of attention, and you know, everything's in the ball's in your court basically. I find that pretty exhilarating and something that I feed off when I race.
What was going through your mind when you were behind the doors and waiting for that the spotlight to shine on you?
Look, excitement, a few butterflies, but the main thing is just keeping in a relaxed mind state for me. I don't want to be overactivated or, you know, overthinking. I just want to get out there and let it happen naturally and let it all flow. But it's hard not to be excited when you can hear the crowd and, you know, the cheers and the music playing. But, you know, it's just all part of the moment. It's part of the spectacle, and it's a pretty cool event.
And very proud the fact that that the television broadcaster 1HD decided to put your race on live. That's fantastic. It was fantastic, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a massive, not only for me but for the sport of swimming in a time when it's possibly struggling a little for television, you know, exposure and media exposure. I think that was a massive coup for the sport, and you know, to have won that race in front of a possibly large television crowd was definitely a big coup for me.
Well, certainly the commentary team with Nicole, of course, and Anthony Hudson got very, very excited about it, and you bloody beauty, I think, was what they said.
Yeah.
Magnussen the Magnificent. I don't know whether you've seen that, but yeah, it was a great call, and it was great. It was just a wonderful moment.
Yeah, I think so. I've since watched a replay. Dad videoed it, and so I watched the replay when I got home, and I think possibly the way I race it adds the excitement. Keeping everyone on the edge of their seats till the very end creates quite the spectacle.
Hoogie also said of you, James, that it's good that the new generation has come post-suits, and he said you're the captain of the new generation. It's pretty nice words from one of the greats, and of course the time that you beat was his previous textile suit world record.
Yeah, it's a pretty massive rap. It's kind of hard to fathom having a legend of the sport like that say things about you. But I met Hoogie while I was over there, and he's a great bloke, really down to earth, really humble, and was really encouraging for me about the way I was swimming and, you know, the prospects for the future. But I think it's a huge rap saying that I'm leading in the new generation without suits. But you know, it's something that I take pride in, and will definitely look to build on.
Well, I mean, someone's got to do it. It may as well be you.
Yeah, I think so. Look, I think it's time that Australian swimming, in particular men's swimming in Australia, was back in the spotlight, and that we take a strong lead leading into London.
Have you and Brent had a chance to map out a plan for the rest of 2011?
Not yet. We sort of mapped out a rough plan of what we're going to do with a few World Cups overseas and then a few of the state championships. But you know, we sat down and set some goals for London, which originally we thought 47.5 would win in London. So that was the ultimate goal. But now, having gone 47.4, we'll probably have to reassess those benchmarks and possibly set the mark a little higher.
You must be excited. I mean, you must be excited to what you've achieved, but knowing what's in front of you.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting times for the sport and for myself in particular. You know, with London so close and having achieved what I did at World Championships, it just puts everything into perspective in terms of the possibility of an Olympic goal, which is, you know, what every swimmer dreams of. Yeah,
as I said before, I mean, there's only been you know, the names like Henricks and Devon Wendon that have done that, and I know that talking to some of those guys during the meet, that they were sort of just, they can't wait to officially welcome you into the gold medal club and to win that world title. It really has been an ultimate stepping stone to the future, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think getting that experience on a world stage and being able to stand up in a world championship final and get the job done definitely sets me well for London, and you know, that's a group that I'd love to be a part of with those Olympic gold medalists.
All right, thanks Ian, and our thanks to James Magnussen, definitely a gold medal contender for next year's Olympics. That is it for today's show. I'm Peter Bush, reminding you to keep your head down at the finish.